Mario Kart World is the hottest game right now because it is the launch title for the Switch 2, but also because we haven't gotten an official new Mario Kart since the Wii U. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you my first impressions on Mario Kart World, as I have put countless hours into it already. I'm going to give you my thoughts, opinions, and I'm just going to let you know now, this isn't going to be a deep dive. I am in no means a pro competitive Mario Kart person. I am a casual Mario Kart fan, casual kart racer extraordinaire. I've played, the Mario Karts, Crash Team Racing, the Sonic Racing games, but I am casual by all means and purposes. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, welcome to the video. The biggest feature Mario Kart World introduces is the free roam mode, where you can go anywhere on a super large map that's already loaded in, and you can even visit the other tracks that you race on in the Grand Prix. And this is the big selling point for the game, although I think it's one of the more weaker parts. Let me explain. I absolutely love that from the get-go, when you start on the main screen of Mario Kart World, you can opt into free roam and just start driving. And every time you boot up the game, it's in a different spot that you might not have been through yet. There is definitely stuff to do in this open world scheme. There are these power buttons that you drive into, and they give you an array of challenges to complete. And if you complete them, you get stickers. Stickers are the main collectible in this game, and there are a lot of them that you can put on your carts and have as your little icon on the main screen. I really like this because it's an achievement system in Mario Kart, and it gives you some incentivization to explore and complete challenges within the free roam. In addition, you have just the whole world to play with, which is a lot of fun, but when you're not doing challenges and you're driving from one location to the next, sometimes there are dry spouts at areas that are very boring. And in addition to that, if you've already cleared that area, there's not a whole lot to do there. There's also these mystery blocks on the ground that you can drive over. I believe there's like 5 or 6 of them for each little zone on the map that you can find to unlock some goodies. I have not yet completed that yet. There are hidden Princess Peach coins also scattered throughout the map that you can collect. So it's very much a collectathon, which is absolutely fine and is a great way to kill time. But that's really all this mode is killing time and adding that experience to the game. It's not bad by any means necessary. I just really hope that they add stuff, maybe even events, like giant bosses come down, like in Kirby Air Ride, for example, in the city trial mode. I know they're doing a whole new Kirby Air Ride game, and I'm very excited for that. But I'm just saying something similar where you're riding around and like more events can happen. Yes, stars and items can fall down. There's changes in the weather and the day and night cycles, which is very cool and very impressive for the Switch's capabilities. However, I would like a little bit more meat to this dish, because right now this is the entree being served to us, but it really seems more like an appetizer. Speaking of food, there are these goodie bags spread throughout the entire map at these restaurants called Yoshi's. They're also on trucks and other little pit stops along your journey. Collecting them is really cool because you can unlock new skins for your characters. It seems random, but I'm sure some nerd already has figured out the drop rates for these skins, but it does seem like sometimes it'll rotate you back to a skin that you already have. It's not like every time you get a new food bag, you get a new costume. So there's that. That adds some variety and incentivizes you to play free roam with multiple different characters, but you can also do this in the knockout mode and the Grand Prix mode, which we'll get into in a second. I want to go back to the characters real quick. The roster for this game is absolutely massive, but also confusing. Look, I get it. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe really disappointed people for the base game because a lot of the unlockable characters were just all the Koopalings, and I understand that. But it's even more random and crazy for Mario Kart World because you're just getting random default enemies from the Mario series in general. And I like a big beefy roster, but a lot of it is also just variant costumes for Mario, Peach, the main cast of characters. And that's great, but they're individual as separate characters, basically. Instead of switching through like you would in like a Super Smash Bros. Type, you actually have to scroll over to each different costume, and it's almost as if each alternate costume is its own character, and the menu is just really big and cluttered and jarring in that aspect. I just personally don't like flipping through a menu of characters. I like them all to be on the screen, and I can just select as I go, and then having question marks on the spots where I haven't unlocked characters. Just aesthetically, I find that more pleasing. That's more of a nitpick, but it is something I wanted to address here. There's no like character so far that I've seen or unlocked that I'm like, whoa, that's really cool, they're in it. I'm just like, ah, yes, another random Goomba variant 2.8, right? I do like how the characters have their own little dance moves as you select them. I think that's a nice little feature. And overall, the designs and models look absolutely great. They're going for a more cartoonish, rubbery style. It's like a hybrid of, I would say, like Odyssey and Mario Odyssey and Wonder. They're really trying to keep that kind of look going, Mario Wonder and Mario Odyssey. And you can definitely tell they're also inspired by the big blockbuster hit, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, because they even redesigned DK entirely to fit more with that and his new game that'll be coming out in a little bit. So character design wise, I really like them. They look the best they've ever looked, in my opinion. So I have to tip my hat off to them for that. In addition, the game just looks beautiful. The art design, the graphics, the sound design, the controls are crisp and tight. So I have no complaints on that front. They do use a lot of the same old soundtrack bits from other Mario games as you're going around free roam, but I can't be mad at that. It's a bop. It seems like they have cooled down on some of the items too. There's still a lot of hectic OP items in this Mario Kart, but it does seem like there's not as many crazy ones as in previous ones. But that could also be because they changed the amount of racers from 12 to 24, literally doubling the size. So there could be a lot of hectic items going on behind me, and I just have no idea about it. And I think that's one of my major criticisms that I'll get further into later down in this review, is that when you're in the thick of it, this is a very chaotic game. Kart transformations are back, where when you go into water, you go into a boat mode. If you're on land, you're just cruising in regular mode. And then if you're off terrain, your wheels get bigger. And then, of course, when you're in the air, you have a glider. So these are all the things that have stayed in. Zero gravity is completely gone. You're not going upside down on any courses. There's no gravity boosters, and you don't get an automatic boost bumping off of another racer. You only get an extra boost if they have a mushroom and you run into their mushroom and boost off. So those are some big changes. You can now wall jump, which I've only done accidentally, really, and that can lead to some almost game-breaking things. I'm sure there's videos out there showing off some tech that you can do and some crazy shortcut skips and all that. I've kind of stayed away from that for my vanilla virgin take on this game, and then after I get this review out and play the game 100%, or at least like get all of the cups done, then I'll go and look at some cool tech and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's some mechanics there. Grinding is now in this too, where you can grind on rails, and it just feels slow to me. I don't know anybody else. Sure, you can do tricks and then land back on them for a little bit of boost, but to me, grinding seems like you go slower than if you're just driving on the course. So I don't know if that's placebo or not, but that's just my take on it. So it does spice up some of the mechanics and gameplay, and like I said before, it does feel very crisp and tight. I really do like the way it feels on the Switch too. Grand Prix gets a change, and depending on who you're asking, they could say it's for the better or for the worst. You still go to different tracks for them to be exact. However, you also drive in between, which builds out the world and adds a little diversity. However, they count as laps in this Grand Prix, so you do 3 laps on the first track, and then you're kind of just doing semi-laps the rest of the way, and don't really get to fully flesh out the other courses. You don't do 3 laps on each of the other tracks. You really just do laps, I would say, as you're driving over there. Laps aren't really an appropriate term because you're not going around in a circle. You're going in straight lines to the next course, and then you finish that race at the very end, and then you get your trophy. and it's interesting. I don't hate it. I think it adds something new to the Grand Prix, and if you want to do all the laps on the track, you can go to versus races, so that option is available to you as a alternative. Depending on what cup you're racing in for the Grand Prix depends on the route that you're taking. Sometimes it's a straight shot with not a lot going on except people attacking each other with items and a few enemies coming your way. Other times it's very inventive how it transitions into the next map. You will get launched up into the sky, or you'll have, tough enemies attacking you as you're racing through. The course is not just a straight line, you bob and weave. It really just depends on what cup you're doing. So it's a kind of mixed bag in my opinion, but overall I didn't find myself very bored. I can replay these courses over and over again, which I think is really great because there's so many different shortcuts and very expansive routes you can take on all the tracks and all of the routes to get to the different tracks. So I definitely would give this, if I had to give this portion of a rating, the Grand Prix, I would give it a B+. I think it's solid. So we talked about the free roam being the main staple for this game, but I actually think knockout mode is the sleeper mode here. I think this is the real money maker for Mario Kart World. I kind of been gravitating myself a lot to this mode more than all the others because it's basically a battle royale but in Mario Kart. You race on multiple tracks, and each time you have to place higher and higher and higher until you try to go for first place. I believe it's first you have to be placed at 20th, then 18th, then 16th, then 14th, then 12th, then 8th, then I think it bumps all the way up to 6-4, and then try to get to first as you bump the competition out. And I think this is a really fun and creative idea. Like I said, I do think it gets kind of hectic, and the power-ups can be very, very crazy when you're in that middle pack of people and everyone's just attacking each other. If you're in the lead, you usually have a pretty good stretch of being safe, and if you're far behind, you usually can get the really good items and just steamroll through, but that's just standard Mario Kart fare. I definitely think that Knockout is the heart of Mario Kart World, unless they do some DLC to really flesh out that free roam. I would give the knockout portion of Mario Kart World an A-. And since I've randomly started giving out these arbitrary letter grades halfway through the video, the roster gets a solid B and the free roam gets a B-. So I recorded a good 5 more minutes of great perfect content for you guys, and for some reason my software just decided to delete that big chunk. So I'm going to do this in a more speed round fashion. Battle mode is what it is. You don't really play Mario Kart for the battle mode. I didn't play it enough to give it a definitive grade. However, I didn't play it online. I just played it with computers on easy, and they were too easy. They were almost brain dead. None of them attacked me. But I don't really know what to tell you there. So battle mode didn't really give the itch that I needed, and I don't really tend to go back to it much. When it comes to online, however, I have a lot of praise because when you're matchmaking and waiting to get into a race, and after you vote on a racetrack, you're in free roam, and you can do everything that you normally do in free roam. You can get the collectibles, you can get new skins, you can basically play the game while matchmaking is going on in the background, and I wish more AAA games would do this, so it is a big point towards Nintendo for this. It's the bare minimum still in the full grand scheme of things, but it is a good feature to have for Mario Kart World. Of course, when you're playing online, everybody is sweating their asses off, so that's just the nature of the beast. However, it was still a lot of fun doing the versus races and the knockout mode. Even though I only placed 8th in knockout a few times, it was so fun. I don't know if it's just that primal urge to scrape up to the top from the bottom to just defeat your foes and enemies and be number one, why we like battle royales in Fortnite so much. I don't know. There needs to be a psychological study on it if it hasn't been done already. But knockout mode is just so fun. I cannot emphasize how much fun it is, even online, even with the chaos of everything going on. It was an all-out fun time. When it comes to communication or network errors, I didn't have any going against randos, which is really nice, but I had quite a few just in a room with my friend, which was interesting. So that'll be something to look into. I don't know if it's just because I'm ignorant, but I tried looking into it. I haven't looked into it too much, but we weren't able to join as friends and then race other randos. It had to be within that friend room. So I don't know if that's possible yet in Mario Kart. When it comes to lag or stutter, I didn't get any of that. When I played Mario Kart on my Switch 1, it was abysmal. I had to get an Ethernet adapter. So far, it doesn't look like I have to for the Switch 2, but knock on wood, that might just be copium for the time being. But when it comes to the first game online, granted, I haven't done the stupid cheap Discord thing with the shitty microphone or anything like that. I haven't had major issues. It was only when I was in a friend room for a little bit, and he's also in the UK across the world, so I don't know if that has something to do with it as well. So overall, I'm going to give the online experience, granted I've only done a handful of races for the sake of this review, this could change, a B plus A minus. It's right in between those two, really. It's pretty solid, definitely for Nintendo standards. Some other things that I forgot to mention, the carts are not customizable anymore. Instead of it going through and switching different parts and unlocking different parts, you just get pre-made carts. I like that. There seems to be a lot. The stats change depending on which character you choose, and you can do still a combination sort of thing when you look into it, and I'm sure there's already a tier list and metadata and all that stuff those nerds are cooking up for this game. I'm gonna give the cart selection an A. And with that being said, I'm gonna have to tell you guys right here, right now, the true, honest truth about Mario Kart World. It's a good game. I think it's better than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is saying a lot because that game had a lifespan of its own. It was the best-selling, top-selling Switch game. They took it from the Wii U, they made it into a deluxe version, they added more characters, and then years later, they added DLC. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a 2-star restaurant, whereas when you look at Mario Kart World, it's a 3-star restaurant. However, it's a little bit more complex than that. The main entree of this restaurant is the free roam, and I think it's a little bit lackluster. I think you're sitting down and expecting a big hearty meal, but you're still a little bit hungry afterwards. However, you have a lot of filling sides to that dish that really flush it out, especially with the knockout mode. That is just mwah, chef's kiss, and the online for dessert, which helps elevate the rest of it. So yeah, it's a little bit disappointing that free roam isn't as fleshed out as I would like it to be, and some of the UI choices for like the character roster and stuff like that are a bit questionable. But when it comes to what matters, Mario Kart World is a fun game. I highly recommend to anyone that owns a Switch 2. If you don't own a Switch 2, maybe wait for a few more games to come out, or check out your financial situation before thinking about investing in this. I did a whole video that you can check out right here on my thoughts on the Switch 2 where I go into this a little bit more. But yeah, Mario Kart World gets my seal of approval. If I had to rate the game, I would give it an 8 out of 10.